question: why does the conscious you need to incarnate in order to grow? Why don't we work on our psychology while in, for example, the identity realm? Once we die on earth and disconnect from the physical body, then return to one of the three realms, emotional, mental, identity, I assume that there would be an awakening to some extent, and that there is more clarity as to who we are and the nature of the universe. Therefore, the growth would be easier. Also, is the I Am Presence able to work on itself in the spiritual realm without projecting this extension, the conscious you? Well, you know, what I would say here is that I've covered this in some of the other videos, especially how the world was created, but also some of the others. So, you know, you could say in the spiritual realm, there are many I Am Presences. You know, multiple, I mean, billions associated with Earth, just. And there's, of course, many more throughout the entire world of form. And not all of them are sending a conscious you into physical embodiment. There are some that only send an extension into the identity realm, some into the mental, some into the emotional. And that goes not just for Earth, but other planets in the physical universe. So, but there are some I Am Presences that choose to send an extension of themselves into the physical. And if you look at these four spheres that make up our universe, you can put them on a scale in terms of the vibration. So the identity level has the highest vibration. It's just a certain step down from the spiritual vibrations, the spiritual realm, the lowest spiritual realm. And then the mental realm is another step down, lower vibrations, more dense, we might say. The emotional level, another step down, and obviously the physical is the densest. This can be witnessed by our physical bodies, you know, that they can die, for example, and they need to eat, and, you know, all these kind of things. So you could say that, of course, there can be growth by an I Am Presence sending an extension of itself into the identity realm. But there's only a certain amount of growth that you experience from that. So because the mental is a little bit denser, you can experience a greater degree of growth by sending an extension there, and again with the emotional. And of course, the physical being in most dense, you actually have an opportunity for the greatest growth in the physical realm. If you watch near-death experiences, you can see various statements that these people have used to describe what it was like to be out of the body. And some say that there are many beings in the higher realms who look at us who have taken physical embodiment as the most courageous, because it's the most dense, it's the most difficult. There are also those who will say that there are actually many, many life streams in the higher realms who are just waiting for an opportunity for physical embodiment because, again, it gives the greatest growth. So that's really the basic reason for this. And as the question says, you know, once we die and disconnect from the physical body, we return to one of the other three realms. And the question is, I assume there would be an awakening to some extent, and that there's more clarity as to who we are and the nature of the universe. Therefore, growth would be easier. Well, first of all, depending on people's levels of consciousness. If they are at a lower level of consciousness, they don't necessarily awaken once you go out of the physical body. You are still at a certain level of consciousness. And many people, and you can even see this in near-death experiences, you know, that a person's level of consciousness will actually determine where they go after they leave the body and what they experience, what they are able to experience. And the reason for this is that the Ascended Masters are always working with people, but they have to work with people's level of consciousness. And if they're at a fairly low level of consciousness, very attached to the physical, the Ascended Masters, for example, don't appear to them. And you will see many people, they see deceased family members, because that's all they can recognize with their level of consciousness. But as I've also explained in some videos, those of us who are spiritual people, who are on the spiritual path, we do go to a higher level once we pass from the body. And we often work with the Ascended Masters to create our life plan. But it's not that once you go out of the body, you instantly awaken in terms of your level of consciousness. You realize there is something outside, but you still have a certain level of consciousness on that scale of the 144 levels. So what you experience is that level, and it's from that level you then create your life plan for your next embodiment. And that means that when you go out of the body, you're very aware that you're at a certain level of consciousness and you want to grow from there, and that's why you look to your next embodiment. What can you do to create growth from that level of consciousness you're at? And again, you know, your biggest opportunity for growth is actually to be in physical embodiment and overcome these. In a sense, you could say once you go into physical embodiment and go into separation, you create these separate selves, and you have to really overcome them in the physical. It's quite hard to do that in the higher selves, in the higher levels. You can overcome some of the other selves from the 48th level and up, but those who are created below the 48th based on duality and separation, very hard to overcome from the higher realms without being in physical embodiment. So the other thing you can say is, you know, the question says, you know, growth would be easier. Yes, growth would be easier, but as I said, the purpose of growth is not that it should be easy. See, this is where we as spiritual people often go into a little bit of a misunderstanding or a blind alley, and it's understandable. I went into it myself for a number of years. So you grow up, you don't have anything spiritual in your life, you think there's something missing, you're longing for something. You also look at the world, perhaps you're suffering yourself because you have a difficult childhood, perhaps you see all the suffering in the world. Now suddenly you find a spiritual teaching or guru and you find the spiritual path. And then you go into this state that, oh, but the purpose of the spiritual path is growth, and to get out of all this suffering and to grow as fast as possible and in the easiest way possible. And there are unfortunately some gurus out there who will promise their followers that they have discovered the easy way to growth. Just meditate 20 minutes morning and evening and you'll automatically reach cosmic consciousness or whatever the promise is. And so this causes some people to go in and say, oh, but the purpose of being on the spiritual path is to get out of here as quickly and as easily as possible. That's not the purpose. That's a rather dangerous misunderstanding because it causes you to look for this shortcut. The purpose of the spiritual path is to take you from whatever level of consciousness you are at when you discover it to the highest level of consciousness. And how do you grow from your present level of consciousness? Say you are at the, let's just say you're at the 48th level when you discover the spiritual path. Most people are probably a little higher, but anyway, you're at the 48th level. Your goal, in order to ascend, is not to get out of here as quickly as possible. Your goal is to systematically, one step at a time, rise to the 144th level of consciousness. Then you can ascend. So the real goal for the spiritual path is actually to look at every illusion on every level from the 48th to the 144th level and overcome that illusion, overcome that separate self. You know, so you know, the purpose of life is not to find some kind of shortcut whereby you can jump from the 48th to the 144th level and have this instant awakening that some people dream about. You know, it's like, you know, when people go into this blind alley, it's like they're thinking, oh, the purpose of life is to get to heaven or ascend or however they see it, without dealing with my psychology, without looking at the beam in my own eye. But the real purpose of the spiritual path, as I said before, there are three purposes of the spiritual path. Resolve psychology, resolve psychology, resolve psychology. That's all it is about. And that means that you resolve the psychology at the 48th level, see the illusion, let go of that separate self, go to the 49th level. Now you see the illusion there, let that self die, go to the 50th, and you just keep going, my friend, one step at a time. And it takes time. Now, you could be at a higher level when you discover the spiritual path and this embodiment, so it doesn't take as much time. But believe me, for all of us, it takes time. And those who claim that they were instantly awakened, they have either done the work, walked the steps in a past lifetime that they don't remember, or they're simply deceiving themselves. Because, as I have explained before, when you go about a 96 level, you can have, even before, you can have some dramatic experiences. But if you think this means you've now reached some ultimate level, you're not going to grow beyond that level for the rest of your lifetime. And you think you are awakened, or you think you are enlightened, or you think you are guaranteed to be saved. But when you leave the body, you are faced with the reality. You are still at a certain level of consciousness, meaning you have to reincarnate. And so again, it's like, and it's really a problem in the West a lot, because how do we grow up in the West? We are programmed, brainwashed to focus on results. What matters is the result. But there are some Eastern teachings, especially Buddhist teachings, Taoist teachings, that talk about it's actually the process that's the most important. So it's not the purpose just to jump out of here. The purpose is to look at each of these illusions, because each time the conscious you sees through an illusion, the I Am Presence grows. And that's the whole purpose for you being here in the first place. That's the reason why the conscious you was sent here by the I Am Presence, to grow. And so, just because you have experienced life as suffering, it's not the purpose to just get out of here instantly. It really is the purpose to go through this sometimes difficult, sometimes arduous process. But what am I trying to say with all of my videos? First of all, it's possible to walk a systematic path towards higher states of consciousness. But also, it's joyful to do it. It's wonderful to do it. It's a wonderful path to follow. Once you get beyond a certain lump in your psychology and you make that shift, it's just wonderful to see how your path unfolds, and even how your physical, practical life unfolds. And it becomes a joy to walk the path. So why be in a hurry? It is what it is. It's just, life is great when you make that switch. And all of us are capable of doing that. But how can we do it? By resolving the psychology that makes us focused on suffering.